If you're like me, you probably grew up playing video games. I, for one, originally got my start on the Game Boy Advance, specifically the red SP version that had a black lit screen in it and was rechargeable out of the box. It was originally a gift that I got from a cousin of mine who had recently gotten a DS. However, the red portable wasn't the only thing I got, as there were a multitude of games that I also had. Keyword, had. You see, I would end up getting a DS of my own for Christmas of 2009. I played that far more than I ever did the GBA, especially since my brother got his own DS as well, so I wouldn't have to share it. However, I could still play GBA games, until the DS I had broke and got replaced with a Midnight Blue DSi XL that I actually still have. I did still play GBA games occasionally until I sold the system and games entirely in 2012, so that I could use the money to get Pokemon Black 2. But I digress. Anyways, not too long ago, a remake of PacMan World was announced to be coming to modern platforms, and I realized, hey, I had that game on my GBA, which then eventually led to wanting to make this video where I revisit some GBA games I played in my childhood and see how well they hold up today. The first one I played was PacMan Collection. When you start the game up, you're met with these sick beats. Oh, Comic Sans on the title screen? That's not a very good sign. After pressing start, you're presented with 4 options: PacMan, Pack Attack, PacMania, and PacMan Arrangement. PacMan is pretty straightforward. It's literally just the classic arcade game, but now it's portable. Not much to say here, to be honest. Pack Attack is next, and... oh. It's just a Pac-Man themed Tetris clone. I was never very good at Tetris. Let's try the puzzle mode instead. In this mode, you only have a limited number of Pac-Men that you need to place strategically to get all of the blinkies. There are apparently 100 levels of this, but like I said, I'm no good at Tetris, so I couldn't even beat the first level. And I don't care enough to look up the passwords for the rest, so let's just move on. On to PacMania. I was never a big fan of this one as a kid, but I'm still not really big onto this one now. I do like the aesthetic though. I'm a bit of a sucker for pseudo 3D like this. It's also pretty impressive because apparently, if the copyright screen's anything to go by, it originally released in 1987. An interesting tidbit is that, unlike regular Pac-Man, the pellets are worth 60 points instead of 10. There's also this purple ghost that looks like they'd be a movie critic or something, to me. However, the game feels really slow. Pac-Man moves very slow in this one, which makes it feel kinda boring, honestly. It didn't keep my interest for long, which probably explains why 7-year-old me didn't play it much. The one I have the most to say about is the one that I'm showing last, PacMan Arrangement. Of the games here, it's probably the most interesting one to me. Like with PacMania, there's this pseudo 3D aesthetic I like, except it's a different sort of 3D, as if it's pre-rendered models like in Donkey Kong Country. Which it might be, but I could be wrong. Other than the graphics, what sets this one apart is the new ghost named Kinky, I'm not kidding, who can give the classic ghosts extra powers. Blinky grows bullhorns and can now dash, Pinky becomes a bunny and can now jump across the map, Clyde puts on some weight and has extra pellets to prolong the level you're on, and Inky becomes the teacher from Jimmy Neutron for some reason. They can create a clone of themselves now. There are also power-ups Pac-Man can take advantage of, such as Super Speed, a clone of his own to allow you to grab more pellets faster, and even the abilities to trap all of the ghosts in a weird pot. The game feels pretty good to control in my opinion, and it's definitely faster than PacMania was. But I have one major issue. There's barely any consequence for running out of lives. I would assume it would reset you to the start of the stage, the start of the world, or even just reset the level you're currently on, but no. All it does is reset your points counter. The game is also extremely short. I finished the whole game in under 30 minutes. And what do you get for making it to the end? What a lame reward. Let's now move on to the game that originally made me go on this journey in the first place. PacMan World for the GBA. Okay, that's a pretty long string of corporate logos. If CinemaSins were here, he would not be pleased to see this. Let's hope... Oh my goodness, what is that sound compression? In this intro cutscene? Why is Dig Dug here? Why is the college graduate Pac-Man ascending? Ooh, this is so confusing. The story, because this game has a story, is as follows. In the most boring looking cutscene ever, evil robot Pac-Man complains about how his party's being ruined. Oh, and also they captured Pac-Man, but he also escaped? Yeah. Anyways, for the visuals, they clearly took the DKC approach again, which is fine, but the sound? I am not a fan of how compressed it sounds. It sounds awful, and it kinda ruins the whole experience for me. I think they straight up took the PS1 sounds and crammed them into the GBA's tiny cartridge space, which, frankly, that was a terrible idea. It's not very fun to control either, and while it looks fine, there isn't much of a sense of depth, so it's pretty difficult to judge where you're going to land, or where exactly an enemy is in relation to Pac-Man himself, which leads to taking a lot of unintentional hits. So, actually, I take back what I said earlier. The graphics are not fine. If they impede the gameplay, then they can't be fine. That is the line I draw. I'm sorry. And I know I said this already, but the music sounds terrible, and there's barely any sound effects either. Like, it doesn't feel satisfying to hit enemies, because there's no sound effect when you hit them. That's really frustrating to me. The music is so bad, in fact, that it was starting to give me a headache after only about 20 minutes. Yeah, I think I'm putting this one down, then never picking it back up. Alright, maybe Pac-Man and GBA is a pairing that just wasn't meant to be. Maybe we'll have better luck if we try a different franchise. And here we have another pretty good menu theme, and since this game's an original platformer designed with the GBA in mind, the music isn't horribly compressed like last time. The story goes as follows. Spyro and friends arrive from... somewhere. Apparently this is a sequel, but I never played the original, which places it outside the scope of this video. They expect a welcome party, but nobody's there. It turns out that all the fireflies were stolen, keeping all of the dragons from using their flames, so now you, Spyro, have to go and collect all of them. This game is an isometric 3D platformer, unlike Pac-Man, which means you have a better field of view, and it's a pretty ambitious feat considering the hardware we're talking about here. The game is a bit weird to control, like, if you press right on the D-pad, you're basically going diagonal because of how the camera is, but I would say it's pretty enjoyable nonetheless. The controls don't get in the way as much as in PacMan World. Each of the levels, that are pretty open, have some fireflies that you need to collect, as well as gems. The more fireflies you have, the more levels you unlock to explore, and then you can find even more fireflies and gems in them. Sound familiar to any of you? Yes, this is indeed a Collectathon 3D platformer, if you couldn't already tell. It does also look like it uses pre-rendered sprites for the visuals, just like the Pac-Man games did. Only unlike PacMan World, it isn't as hard to look at. Except when Hunter's in motion, though. Ugh, that does not look right at all. I did enjoy what I've played of it so far regardless, and I would say it holds up surprisingly well. I wouldn't mind revisiting this one, to be honest. And those are all 3 of the games we're going to be looking at for today. If you enjoyed this video, I might do a part 2, since there are plenty of games I haven't talked about yet. With that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.